All right. Welcome everybody to the market hangout. Really just kind of wanted to go through and talk about some of the primary concerns I currently have. Really between two different metrics. So looking at things kind of on a longer term time frame, um, I think that it's possible, given just kind of where things are, the seasonality we kind of find ourselves in, that we could potentially be looking at something similar to what we saw during the COVID crash. Now, I'm not saying um, anything, overly bearish. I'm not saying that we have to see something where it's like, hey, we could see just a massive, massive capitulation style event. But the key thing that I really kind of want to highlight here specifically is the possibility of potentially coming in and retesting the blue band very similarly to what happened with the COVID crash. Now, the blue band currently, it is not a crazy price by any stretch of imagination. It's basically just sitting shy of $45,000. So with all of that being said, I think that this this option is potentially on the table, and the reason for that really, there's two primarily: market uncertainty with unemployment, and the SOM rule indicator going through and actually triggering. So with that, what would that end up going through and looking like? Well, obviously, unemployment went through and triggered, extremely fast during the COVID crash. The SOM rule had gone through and triggered, and it was a very fast-lived recession, to the point of where, yes, prices ended up coming through and rebounding, and the bull market was then on from there. I think something like that could potentially go through and take place again, although I don't necessarily think it has to be as volatile as the COVID crash. In order to go through and get down basically to the blue band, let me go through and pull that up, get rid of the marker tool. From current prices, in order to go through and get in towards the blue band, from current prices where things currently stand, we're talking basically about a 26% drop for Bitcoin. Now, if we go through and we look at it from the current peak, that would basically be a 40% correction. Now, that is something that has happened with Bitcoin in cycles prior. So it's one of those things that I just want people to be prepared for something like that. I'm not saying that it 100% has to happen. And again, I am not trying to be overly bearish when it comes to this. So outside of this, we will go through, and I'll also pull up the SOM rule here. Let me clean this up because this all got ported over from here. Okay, so anyone that has not seen the SOM rule, this is exactly what this is. So 0.5 here really is the level where every time we have gone through and broken above zero point 0.5 on this indicator, that is when a recession essentially starts, and eventually goes through and ends after peaking out and beginning to go through and come back down. So with us, essentially going through and hitting this, printing at 0.53, I know, we're basically right on the cusp. But this has gone through and printed. This has been basically a confirmed signal regarding this. And so with that, we have one of the most accurate indicators here when it comes to a recession in the history of everything that's been created so far. It has had a 100% hit rate on every single recession going back in towards the 1950s. And so with that being said, could this time be different? Yes, it could. This could be the first time that this metric here ends up being wrong. It could be that, the first time where we have uncertainty regarding unemployment, and unemployment being in a steady uptrend for just shy of 2 years now. All of those things added together, yes, this time could be different. But I just want to caution people with thinking in that way, with looking at things in that way. Just because we're in crypto, it does not mean that the crypto space would not be affected for potentially at least a handful more of months, kind of with where things are, should a recession go through and actually hit. Now, crypto is obviously very fast moving, very volatile. And so, with that being said, I don't necessarily think that crypto would go through and just be in a massive, massive bear market, especially with where things currently stand with its current price action that's taken place. I don't think that we would be looking at a massive downtrend, massive bear market with where things are. I do think, relatively similarly to the COVID crash, it would probably be short-lived because I'm very, very confident that the Fed would probably very rapidly pivot their stance and probably then very rapidly um, cut rates and move towards basically quantitative easing. And so, with the same way that the COVID crash was a very short lived capitulation and then moved towards the upside, I think we could potentially be looking at a very similar thing happening here. Okay. With that being said, locally, when it comes to Bitcoin, and just kind of some of the things that I specifically am kind of watching here on this, some of it has to do with price action, some of it has to do with the fib MAs here specifically. So let me actually go through and we're going to adjust these settings into the short-term setting, and we'll go through and talk about this a little bit. So, all right, first and foremost, last week we had gone through and we talked a decent amount how the two primary resistance points that we were watching really had to do with how Bitcoin so far has not been able to reclaim and confidently hold the orange band. Now, when we had gone through, we talked about this on Monday. We were in the process of testing the orange band. I was saying, watch this like a hawk. If we end up not going through and holding this, price will end up probably going through and gravitating towards the yellow band. We ended up failing to hold this, breaking the short-term uptrend that we were following, which, if anyone was curious, that was that right there. So paired with unable to hold the orange band, and then also paired with being unable to maintain this current uptrend that we had been through, price ended up going through and continuing to fall. Where does that bring us now? Short-term price action. I think it's always better to go through and look at things on longer-term time frames and then base trade ideas kind of around that. But short-term price action, 100%, we could possibly go through and retest the orange band before coming back in contact potentially with the yellow band. Now, for me, one of the things I would really like to see regarding that would be if price can take out this high that we have over here. Now, I know that that's not necessarily asking, a whole lot when it comes to price action, but I think locally, this would be kind of where I think that it would be an interesting area to watch. If price can end up coming through here, and let's say slowly and methodically move towards this level. At that point in time, I think that it's possible that we could very easily come in and re-challenge the orange band and see what happens from there. Now, on the flip side, let's say tomorrow, Tuesday, we see, basically from the open, it is just a massive spike straight up into this level. At that point in time, that is an extremely fast, extremely inefficient move. From there, I'd really want to see kind of what happens. If we start showing signs of basically seeing resistance through here, and price isn't really able to confidently move up through here, so again, speed is kind of the equation here. At that point in time, I think it would make more sense for that to be kind of the local barrier for price to then eventually come through and then gravitate back towards the yellow band, and then we would have to see kind of what happens from there. That is obviously short-term talking. We talked a little bit about long-term and kind of my overall expectations regarding where things currently stand with the broader health of the economy and the market as a whole. As always, if anyone has any questions, I'm going to keep this relatively short for this one. But as always, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And if you would like access to any of these indicators, please let me know. I'd love to get them to you. So, all right, have a blessed blessed rest of your day, whatever you're doing. We'll catch you soon. Thanks again.